welcome to Law Unfiltered. I am Sonia Madison.
And I'm Jonathan Mason.
And we kind of like to discuss various current events and some of the legal implications. And recently, we didn't really get to talk about it, but we had a lot of protests surrounding an incident in Charlotte where, I don't want to say another, but a black male was gunned down or shot by a police officer, and now it's being investigated. And it came to my attention that back in July, North Carolina passed this bill that is in effect October 1st. Could you kind of explain how this, could apply to this case, or how it could have affected us getting even police surveillance?
Yeah, well, you recall after the shooting of Keith Lamont Scott recently in Charlotte, the police didn't immediately release the footage, the police camera footage of the shooting. Now, within a couple of days or so, the family released a cell phone video, but still, that's just one perspective and doesn't show everything. So there was clamor for the police department to release the video, which ultimately they did. Now, the timing of this is interesting because effective Saturday, a new law is going into effect in North Carolina that would make it much more difficult for this video to be released. Not just this video, any police video, dash cam video, body cam video. They passed this law, which basically what it does is it states clearly and unequivocally that this type of police footage is not a public record. So you can't send in a FOIA request and get the video sent any longer under this bill, which again goes into effect on October 1st. And so how would that have affected this case? Well, what they've done is they've created specific categories. Well, they've done a couple of things. One, let me back up. They put the chief officer of that particular police department kind of in charge of the decision on whether to release the video. And there are only certain people that video can possibly, not automatically, but possibly be released to. And I'll look at the bill itself, and so it's a person whose image or voice is in the recording, a personal representative of an adult person, interesting to say, an adult person whose image or voice is in the recording if the adult person has consented to the disclosure, a personal representative of a minor or of an adult person under lawful guardianship whose image or voice is in the recording, a personal representative of a deceased person whose image or voice is in the recording, and a personal representative of an adult who is incapacitated and unable to provide consent or disclosure. So noticeably absent from that list is news organizations, ACLU, Defense Counsel, community activists. So,
and to be quite honest, it sounds like unless you had an attorney, either prior to or immediately got it after it happened, then even determining what personal representative is could be interesting.
Well, and another thing, that's true. And another interesting thing about the video, the new law is that it says when disclosing the recording, the law enforcement agency shall disclose only those portions of the recording that are relevant to the person's request. So that also leaves some wiggle room for them to discuss. Yeah. So say in this case where you had the decedent's wife on the video and she was pleading with the police not to shoot her husband, well, she would be a person who would qualify. Her image or voice is in the recording. But they could say, you know what, that's true, but we're only going to give you the part of the recording where you're speaking. We're not going to give you the part where the shooting took place, right, because that's not relevant to you as a person. So it just leaves a lot of room, which I guess is what they wanted, for them to either deny the request or to decide, well, we're going to give it to this person, but we're only going to give them a portion of it that we think is relevant.
Well, and like you said, they're defining what's relevant. And so, as you know, when it's pertains to excessive force or whatever requirements that are going to be determining whether any type of illegal conduct happened, they're going to decide, well, let's just try to fix it. Or, and they may not, I'm not saying that I'm going to assume the worst, but they at least are going to try to look at it in a way that's in the light most favorable to them versus giving away information that then puts them in the damage of light. One thing that I also found very interesting about this, that there is this catch-all that essentially says, if the department decides because of the safety of the person or the officer would be at risk, they're not going to release it.
Right.
And I mean, I think that given our state right now, people don't even release police officer things anymore unless that's automatically already available before things get escalated, because police officers come back and say, we're getting threats or all kind of things that are happening when these issues come. So, in the event they decide to exercise this discretion and not turn it over, or to only turn over a part that really isn't, in your mind, irrelevant, what is the course of action? What's the remedy?
Yeah, and that's why another thing that a lot of people have a problem with this bill with is that the only remedy you have is to go to court and seek a court order to basically appeal the decision of the police department. And so a lot of people may not be equipped to do that. They may be uncomfortable with the process. Or maybe they just shouldn't have to go through all that. If my image is on a video, I'm involved in this incident, I should have a right. Or even if I'm not, if I'm a newspaper, if I'm the Charlotte Observer or the Raleigh Observer in the Charlotte, whatever the newspaper in Charlotte is, escapes me right now. I should have, if I'm a reporter, I feel like I should have a right to report on something like this. It's a great public interest. And so they've laid out, before you even get to what the court has to decide in determining whether they should, grant the order so that the video can be released. It also, I won't go through all the factors, but the bill lays out a number of factors that police agency is supposed to consider, when they're deciding. Now, once it goes to court, of course, there are going to be a whole host of factors that the court is supposed to consider. Kind of generic, gives them a lot of wiggle room. The first one is the release is necessary to advance a compelling public interest. So maybe in some situations, like the most recent one there in Charlotte, maybe a court would say there is a compelling public interest. We've got people rioting in the streets and violence taking place in the streets, although largely the protests were peaceful. So maybe that is a mechanism.
Or maybe they say we have a compelling interest in maintaining whatever line of justice and order, and by releasing it, you taint the jury, per se, or you prevent a steady or in order investigation of the incident. Right.
And I'll just quickly go through the factors that the court will consider. The recording contains information that is otherwise confidential or exempt from disclosure or release under state or federal law. The person requesting release is seeking to obtain evidence to determine legal issues in a current or potential court proceeding. The release would reveal information regarding a person that is of a highly sensitive personal nature. Release may harm the reputation or jeopardize the safety of a person. Release would create a serious threat to the fair, impartial, and orderly administration of justice. So maybe, we're going to prejudice the jury pool if everybody sees this video. Confidentiality is necessary to protect either an active or inactive internal or criminal investigation or potential internal or criminal investigation. And last, there is good cause shown to release all portions of the recording. So as you can see, there's a lot of wiggle room here that can be used for the release, but also that can be used to withhold. And so that's why a lot of people have a problem with this bill. But the bill in and of itself, a lot of people have commented on it, but it's not really going to be a big issue until something else, and hopefully nothing else would happen in North Carolina after this bill goes into effect. And then this law is going to become it's going to come under more scrutiny. And it's, North Carolina, they're already in, the focus of unwanted attention for HB2, is it? I think the bathroom bill, the bathroom law in North Carolina that has caused companies to not come into North Carolina and open new business centers. It's caused events to leave the state of North Carolina, NCAA events, ACC events. So North Carolina is already in the spotlight with one controversial bill. And so eventually, I just have a feeling as things go, then this one is going to come into the spotlight again down the line. So.
Well, it sounds like you kind of think that this bill is very pro-police.
I do think, I don't see any other reason to have a bill like this. If you want it, I think that, just for example, say you didn't have this law, but there was some other compelling reason you needed to protect a witness or some other reason why you just didn't want to release the video. I think they could take measures to go to court or something to prevent the release of video if one of these. So what they've done is they've taken a presumption of availability and made it a presumption of unavailability unless you fit into certain criteria and unless you fit into certain category of person, and also the video fits into certain categories. So
it sounds like you're saying they enacted a law to just pretty much writtenly or just memorialize what they're already doing.
It made it to me, yeah, in the sense that they created a law to give the police an easy way to withhold video in these types of incidents, which I'm not aware of any situations where a video was forced to be released where there was some major compelling reason why it shouldn't have been. So I just question the need for a law like this, other than to protect the police in situations where we have, and I'm not just saying minorities getting shot, but anybody. It doesn't have to be.
Because it could be a speeding ticket.
It could be a speeding ticket. It could right.
Any type of.
It could be
incident
any kind of incident.
Over, and you just want to look at the footage to,
right.
Dispute the ticket.
Right, and you shouldn't have to go through all these hurdles, and maybe somebody will challenge. And I would think most likely it'd probably be maybe it'd be a news organization. Maybe there's some First Amendment.
I was going to say there has to be some kind of constitutional ground. And,
right.
I can't think of one off the top right now. As they do have a, obligation to protect, their police officers, law enforcement, and the like. But it would be interesting if someone does challenging, just to see what grounds they argue.
Well, I think. Well, there's probably some organizations, because of course, like the ACLU, probably public defenders, things like organizations like that have got their eye on this and maybe are thinking of a way to attack it.
Waiting for the right case.
Waiting for the right case. But I think if there's some case in North Carolina where the news media really wants to try to get a hold of a video or something like that, then I could see some kind of challenge to the video.
Well,
but I imagine what they could also do is just find a person who fits into one of these categories.
If they do, then they're not, at hindrance by the law.
But one thing that I failed to mention about this law, and I think it's also important, is that if they do, and I want to make sure I use the right language. Let's see if I can find it by searching. If you get this video, you're not allowed to copy it or release it or anything. You can view it, but you're not allowed to record.
Which were they allowed to copy before?
I can't speak to that, but I would. If this law didn't exist, then
I guess I would imagine police weren't letting them copy before.
I don't know how that worked if you came into the police station and they'd show you the video. I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with that practice. But I just want to point out that clearly now, under the law, you're not. So it's not like you could get this video and send it to CNN or something like that once you got a hold of it. So.
Yeah, but
So
I guess we have to just know if they were doing that before. Is that, I mean, I don't know.
Well, news organizations got videos before, and they showed them. I think news organizations are behind the release of a lot of these types of videos.
Yeah, but a lot of times I feel like their videos are coming from the victims themselves, like someone's camera, not necessarily from the department.
They could be coming. Yeah, you're right. There is a part of it. But for example, though, in Tulsa, and that was one of the things about this bill is that it was such a contrast to the Tulsa Police Department that immediately, pretty much, released the video from the shooting there, and they made a point of wanting to be transparent.
Yeah.
They wanted to. They felt like the best way to calm the community, even if the video is bad, show the video. And one thing, even when the governor talks about the video, the law and why he signed the bill, it's like, you know what, videos, they only show one side of the story. They don't show everything and everything. And we all understand the video is one, the camera shows one perspective, but the camera's not going to lie. I mean, the incidents are what they are, the facts are what they are, and whatever's captured is captured. It's not. We all understand that, but when you don't want to release it, it just makes it seem like you're hiding something, and it just makes the situation worse.
Right, and it's considered key evidence, and you can't deny that. And,
right.
And like the governor also said he was interested in protecting police safety, so it was clear that was what he had in mind.
Well, the movement across the country is for more cameras and more transparency. So,
which I at least give them kudos for having the body cameras, because a lot of states don't do that. They don't have their police officers wearing body cameras.
Yeah.
But in the interest of time, I hate for us to keep going because I feel like we might be out of time now.
No, but I understand. But it'll just be. I'll keep an eye on it, and if anything happens there, we'll provide an update. And if something happens in any other state with a similar law, then we'll definitely post it.
Sounds good. Well, thank you, Jonathan, and
All right.
thank you guys for listening. See you next time.